Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. Podcast you can find, of course, here on YouTube. You can find anywhere you stream podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We do like to push people to YouTube, though, just because we're so good to look at.
We're so incredibly handsome. It's really a favor to you, the viewer, to watch us.
But in all actuality, I just push people there because I do put in a little work into the video. And so it's like
it
the
shows.
effort goes there. I want people to see the effort.
Yeah.
But today, Andy, today is Mother's Day. So, of course,
Obviously.
to honor the mothers, we're going to talk about what all mothers love.
Yeah.
And that's killer clowns.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
The two just went so well together.
Yeah. You know, it's the Venn diagram of mothers and killer clowns. It's like it's overlap.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a circle.
You have to talk about it.
So, of course, the movie is Clown in a Cornfield.
Yeah.
Clown in a Cornfield is one of those movies where, like, I was writing the summary and I was like, does it need a summary? It's kind of right there in the title.
It's kind of right there in the title, yeah.
But I will still do my best.
I want to hear a summary so bad.
I don't even know, like, this is probably not going to do, it's not going to be as entertaining as just saying the title. But I said our main protagonist is Quinn, a high school girl who has just moved to a small town with her father, where they're trying to get a fresh start after the passing of her mother. Quinn is quickly drawn in by a group of friends who invite her along with their mischief and partying. But one night at a barn party, surrounded by cornfields, they are terrorized by a group of masked murderers donning the look of the town's mascot, a clown named Friendo.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's the gist. So, Andy, was Clown in a Cornfield good?
So I think when you are going to review a movie called Clown in a Cornfield, I think it almost doesn't matter. I think the question is, you have to end up asking yourself was I entertained for an hour and a half? And the answer is yes. I was entertained. I don't know if this was a good movie or not. It probably wasn't. But it doesn't mean that I didn't have a good time, because I did. And if that gets me fired from this podcast, so be it.
Andy,
Please don't fire me, though.
I would never fire you, Andy.
Okay.
You're irreplaceable.
Thank you.
I walked on this movie and I said, I bet Andy's not going to love this movie because it's not a great movie.
No.
But Andy will enjoy that movie because this is up Andy's alley.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself.
I walked on that movie and I said, that is exactly the kind of movie I don't like.
Yeah, I didn't figure you would.
And honestly, the reality is, most people might hear that and be like, well, Jeremy doesn't like horror movies. This movie is like, of course he's not going to like Clown in a Cornfield.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that thought, maybe this is going to be the type of horror movie I like. Because the premise is so, like, funny. Just hearing the title, I was like, they're just going to have fun with this. And I thought, okay, sometimes you have fun. Sometimes you have a movie that's about a ballerina vampire, and you go, that's just so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost hard to not have a good time at a movie like this. And what I thought is, I honestly walked out and I said, this felt to me like Cocaine Bear or Y2K. Like, we've got a fun premise.
And that's all we...
But we didn't really flesh it out from there very well. Because it is. I mean, you go, clowns are scary.
Yeah.
People, killer clowns are creepy.
Yeah.
It's been mined before in horror movies, of course. You know, like, I love I almost said I love the It movies. I love It 1. It 2 is terrible. I almost don't acknowledge its existence.
Yeah.
It was a movie that when the previews came out, I was like, well, here's another, like, ridiculous jump scare horror movie. Yeah. Because people think clowns are creepy. And then we actually saw it in the theater together with some other people, and I was like, oh, this is really clever. Really it's like Stranger Things. It's like R-rated Stranger Things is what it was like.
Yep.
Of course, you know, recently the Terrifier movies have mined that clown terror. I have not seen those. You have. You've talked about them a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want to see them.
Yeah.
You won't like them.
So, you know, it's got a lot to it. But I don't normally jump into the, you know, behind the scenes people this quickly, but I will, because this movie is directed by Eli Craig. And Eli Craig has done some successful horror comedy that I like. He directed Zombieland, and that's one of my favorite horror comedy movies. Yeah. I think it's a blast. He directed a movie called Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which I think is one of the most, like, underrated, underseen gems.
Really fun movie.
And it takes horror and it subverts it in this really clever way, where the two protagonists are the, like, redneck hillbilly guys out in the woods, and everybody thinks they're the bad guys, but everything bad's just happening around them. so funny. And I'm like, that's exactly like if you told me
That's what you wanted
Clown in
from
the Cornfield, directed by a guy who did those two movies, I would say, well, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect combination of talent and subject matter. And then I just didn't feel like it had any of the cleverness of either of those movies.
No, clever is not a word I would use to describe this movie at all. It is very paint by the numbers. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
Thank goodness this movie was only an hour and a half. And I'm saying that as someone who enjoyed it, but it's like if they would have stretched this out one more minute, it would have really started to go bad.
Yeah. So I feel bad like that
We don't always have to just sit here and say everything's
this pod
awesome.
is probably going to be dominated by me and all my complaints because there's ample more of those.
Oh, there's a ton
and
of
I
them.
definitely want to give you opportunity to say like, but this was fun and this was fun because I'm sure there is some of that for you to talk
There
about.
was, yeah.
But yeah, as I was watching this, I was going, yeah, it's not quite comedic. It's not quite scary. They didn't really land on a tone, I didn't think.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The characters are completely generic.
Oh, they're so generic.
Listen, that
tell me
happens.
3 characters' names in that movie.
Oh my!
Quinn, I think
I
is
literally only know that because I wrote it down for the summary.
yeah.
I had to look.
Could
it
not
up.
tell you any of the other characters' names. Chad or Chip maybe is the one dude. Doesn't it start with a C? I don't know.
Is it Cole?
Cole. There you go.
Hey,
Yeah. Good job.
So, I wrote this down. I said there is not one actor that I thought we need to make a note of in this movie, other than one or two that I would say are just plain bad.
Yeah.
So again, is this common in horror movies? The generic teen characters. Like,
Of course it is.
But this also reminded me of another movie that we saw recently. It reminded me a little bit of Hard Eyes.
Yeah.
Hard Eyes is like
So much better.
We're going to make this, kind of crowd pleasing, a little goofy,
Yeah.
Valentine's Day killer. And what we talked about in that is how well they did with the human characters in that kind of romance story. How it was like a rom-com mixed with the horror movie, and they did such a good job, surprisingly, with the rom-com aspects.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. And
So then the horror movie just was almost like icing on the
yeah,
cake.
and to the point where we're going like, this actor and actress who are the two
Put
leads
them in a
this,
movie
like,
together.
yeah, they're great, and keep an eye on them. So it's possible to do in these
is.
cheesy movies.
And you don't want to see any combination of these actors. Like, put these guys in another movie. Yeah. Oh, I get it. Here's the problem. I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way. I just like horror movies so much. I probably shouldn't even be on this podcast right now because
No,
they have
exactly why I want you on here. I want you to balance me out.
Okay.
I need the other view.
Okay.
So this movie is at its best when it's exactly what you think it would be. When it's clown mayhem.
Yeah. There's like a 15 or 20 minute stretch where I was like, this is really fun.
That's exactly right. And that's probably my biggest gripe is that the stretch is about 15 to 20 minutes. Honestly, the name is terribly misleading because there were scenes of them running from clowns in a cornfield. Mm-hmm. Yes. 5 minutes long, maybe. And I'm like, I don't know. So that was one of my biggest notes is there's just actually surprisingly little clown mayhem in this movie, which is what people went to the movie to see.
Yeah.
We want to see clowns just be terrifying and terrorizing people.
I really think that they could have just literally that's the start of the movie and it's just the whole movie.
Yeah.
There's a ton of backstory in in a movie called Clown in a Cornfield.
So my final note and maybe my biggest note is where this movie really went wrong is when they tried to have plot.
Yeah.
And
there's so much backstory.
That sounds silly to say from the guy who loves plot.
But when your movie's called Clown in a Cornfield.
But we talk about this all the time. Sometimes you just got to accept the fact that it's a silly premise.
Yeah.
And if you try to make it make sense. Now, one thing that kind of surprised me is this is based on a novel. I don't know how anybody writes the great novel about clowns in a cornfield.
There's 3 of them.
But
There's 3.
Obviously, there's got to be plotting in that because it's you're not just going to write about the scary, tense scene of something's around the corner. But I'm like, okay. First off, the twist of spoilers. We'll go ahead and say that.
Sure.
Spoiler alert now.
Sure.
For the people who are seeing Clown in a Cornfield.
Yeah.
The twist that it's the adults in the town and like the main guy, the Cole's dad, the mayor of the town, or whatever, was so obvious.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So obvious.
Honestly, the movie really didn't even try and hide it, I don't think.
And they're like the ending, all the villain monologuing and stuff. I was like, what would have been 100 times better is if it was just a psycho dressed as Friendo whose motivations were as unknown as Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or any character like that. We don't need this to be somebody with a plot and a plan and it. Just make it a crazy person in a clown costume.
There's more backstory in this movie than there is in like Killers of the Flower Moon. Like there's a ton.
Yes. Yeah. And so here I am actually saying like maybe one of the reasons I didn't like this so much is actually disappointment because I thought there was a good movie to be had in here. Yeah. You can make a good scary killer clown movie, and somehow they didn't because they tried too hard.
It's weird. No, I'm not. Look, I don't have one argument to anything you're saying.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Although it's okay if you did. Like you could, come back at this. I did want to throw out there. Obviously, I already said it. A bunch of anonymous teen actors that I didn't even bother writing down their names. No. I don't care. But I did want to throw out. Kevin Durand plays the main villain.
He's always great.
And we love Kevin Durand.
I love him.
Last year he showed up in Abigail and the Planet of the Apes movie. He played Proximus.
Yeah.
And it's the type of movie. Part of the giveaway is when you've got like two recognizable faces in a movie. One of them is they're going to play a big role somehow. Yes, exactly. He's really got a small role unless he's the big villain, which of course. And then the other one is Will Sasso, who I guess people these days probably, if you're not of a certain age to recognize him,
this
from
guy
Mad
means
TV,
nothing to you.
And I'll be honest, I was watching this movie and going like, I always thought Will Sasso was really funny, but maybe it's because I was like 13 watching him on Mad TV.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else he's been good. It's like, is he actually just really bad? And I've not ever accepted it.
I don't know, but that's some of the weirdest casting for a movie to have him in this movie.
Yeah.
It's really strange.
Yeah. It felt a little like stunt casting, but then at the same time,
but it's like he's not big enough for it to be stunt casting.
I'm like, he feels too big for this role, but then again, is he?
Yeah, it's really strange, almost to the point where it's distracting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was it. That was like the two recognizable faces.
Yep.
And it's something when Kevin Durand is like the most prominently recognizable face in a movie. Bless him. Again, we love Kevin Durand.
I like him a lot.
He's famously that guy, a supporting character, actor. Yeah.
I mean, he's all in. He's committed to this movie.
Yeah. I mean,
he's all
half
in.
His screen time, he's got like mime clown makeup, which was another weird twist. It's like everybody else is dressed up as Friendo. And then he's like,
that was weird.
But I am going to be dressed as
just different for no reason. Yeah.
So I don't know. Andy, please tell me some of the parts that you loved about this movie or enjoyed.
I guess so much is just like you like what you like. And to me, I don't know if it's like weirdly a comfort thing because I've just watched horror movies my whole life. So I just have a lot of good memories of just being young and putting on a horror movie. So when you just put me in a small town with cornfields, okay, I'll go on this hour and a half long ride to find out who this killer is. And in this case of this movie, it ends up being multiple. So like I said, it's so weird because it almost just doesn't matter to me. I'm almost just preconditioned to be like, I'm probably going to enjoy this in spite of itself, which I know maybe does not make for a very interesting podcast because I don't really have a lot of like, no, Jeremy, you're missing the point. I don't have any of that. I just have this just reminds me of horror movies I grew up watching, and I just don't mind being along on this ride. That being said, I did laugh a couple times.
Okay.
I am so glad a movie finally mined some comedy out of teenagers not understanding what a rotary phone is.
That is funny. Yeah,
that made me laugh.
That was a good moment.
That was a good moment. I also really liked, so at one point in the movie, it comes down to Quinn and blonde girl. Don't know her name. Thought she was terrible in the movie. But she did have a funny line. So they get to this house, and it's kind of a trap, and there's a person, I guess, pretending to be dead. And one of the two is like, is he dead? And the other one is like smart aleck. And they go, no, he's meditating. And then they come back downstairs and the person wasn't dead. And he goes to attack. And that blonde girl goes, he wasn't meditating. I thought that was really funny. I really did.
So you're right. Like there were some good moments that they didn't mind out of like the whole thing is like this generational difference. Yeah, like that's sort of the plot.
So when it did,
like the young people are like
just
the old
dumb and annoying, basically.
Like, the end when he's villain monologue Kevin Durant, and he's like these different generations that we've had to like basically set an example and like kind of wipe out some of, and he leaves other reasons like your generation might be the worst of all of them. And it's like yeah, okay, like
Kind of
you actually-
onto something there as far as like a plot.
Like you almost should have focused on that more somehow, or focused on it so that you have those moments: the rotary phone, the stick shift. Oh, when your dad tries to teach you to drive stick shift, say yes because now she can't get away.
That's what I was gonna say. There's little. I think when you're watching Clown in a Cornfield and it's only an hour and a half long and it's not that great, you got to find little moments. And it's like the whole stick shift thing. At least it paid off.
Yeah.
A couple just small things that as a horror guy I always like. I always like when someone takes a picture or a video and then they notice something in the background of that picture. And that happens in this movie. And I just always think, even if it's not supposed to be like the scariest moment or whatever, I just always think that's effective.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that worked. Like she zooms in and she's like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, I like that. I like that moment.
Yeah.
It's a small moment, but
So that was a good moment. That was working better for me when I thought it was going to be more of a Michael Myers type killer. Also with like even the little what do you call it, Jack in the Box like clown thing that he would leave, and
I didn't mind that either.
Like, that's all clever until you get the reveal that it's all these like regular adults, and you're like, why are you
going through the trouble of
yes,
putting?
they're doing way too much.
I know.
It made more sense when it was just a psycho who just likes to mess around, and so. Yeah, sorry. You're here. I am trying to let you be positive. And I can't
you're
stop
right.
Being negative.
I'm just saying, like when there's not a ton of like really positive things, I just found it in little moments. I thought the guy who played the dad was up for the challenge.
Yeah,
like that's kind of a thankless part in a lot of ways to be the dad whose wife like. There's no higher murder rate than a teenage girl's mother in a horror movie. They're all dead.
You're right. Actually,
They're just all dead. And so like that's a thankless part in a lot of ways to be like, I'm the single dad now, and man, me and my teenage daughter just don't understand each other. I'm not saying that guy did a great job, but I felt like he was up for the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have one thing about this movie, totally unrelated to the movie itself. But this is a beef with AMC. So we're talking about all the time, the length of previews that are before movies.
Yeah.
It's 25 minutes minimum
For an hour and a half long movie.
an hour and a half long movie. Because of that, I oftentimes just bank on that. When I see start times, I add 25 minutes. I go, that's when the movie starts.
Yeah.
So, when I go see a movie, it's 30 minutes to 45 minutes away from where I am, where I live, to get to the theater, depending on which theater I go to. And the one I usually go to is 45 minutes. So, like, when I went to go see this, I actually went to go see it on Thursday, because that's a night I knew I had free and wasn't sure if I was going to have time to get back to the theater. So I go, but I'm like, I'm going to have a hard time getting there after work to the showtime I'm trying to get to. But because of that 25 minutes, I'll be good. And so I did. I arrived there like 20 minutes after the start time, had my ticket. So, I'm in pretty quick. I mean, I'm in the door just under 25 minutes before, and I walk in, and they must have started the movie. I don't know exactly how much I missed. I missed a good 10 minutes, I think. I walked in, and it was the scene where they're in the like convenience store.
Oh,
baking.
wow.
So I missed
You missed a whole.
I'm like,
it starts in 1991.
yeah, like
and
I
a
went
couple
back
gets
and read
killed
a
out in a
little bit,
cornfield.
and I was like, geez, like,
Yeah.
And again, I walked in at the time like it's always safe to walk into because the amount of previews. They must have started like almost right on time.
Wow.
And they never do it. And of course, the time that I'm
Yeah. See, this is actually a masterpiece of a movie, and you just don't understand because you missed that first 10.
So I need to put that disclaimer. Is like if I had just
That first 10 minutes makes everything else make no, not at all. Blooper, one for the blooper reel. So yeah. So there's just little things. I always think it's effective. Like I do like when horror movies incorporate like new tech, like the door cam. Like they're like one of the first kids that gets killed by one of the clowns. He sees on his ring cam the clown. That's cool. And then like we already talked about, when it is actually clown in a cornfield and they were literally in a cornfield, that's great. That's good. It's just such a small part. Like there's even like a funny gag where like the one girl's trying to cry, so she covers her mouth, and the other girl covers her mouth, and then one of the clowns just comes and covers that girl's mouth. That's when the movie was what I really wanted it to be.
Yes, you're right. That is that 5 minute stretch in the cornfield is best. And then you get the moment where they're running and the one girl just runs smack into the chainsaw.
Awesome.
And it's like,
yeah.
Again, we try not to sound morbid, but when you're watching a killer clown movie, and you're there for like, show me the crazy kills, and that's one of those moments.
And I will applaud this movie because the tone is a mess, but it didn't just go like the Saw. Like it wasn't just like a mean, gross movie.
Yeah,
which is just I just don't like that at all because it's just been done to death. So like this was, it was R and it was gory, but it was never. I was never like, this is just in really bad taste.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was working. Like there's this one scene where a kid's like lifting weights and he like puts a saw or something and he cuts the kid's head off and it goes right into a cooler. And it's like, okay, like that's like kind of what you want from a movie called Clown in a Cornfield.
Yeah.
And then he walks off and his shoes are like squeaking and it's like, this is about what I'm looking for. So those are some positives I found in the movie. And I will say, this is not an acting showcase. The lead girl I thought was fine.
She was fine.
Like she has some charisma and like I thought she was fine. I mean, compared to everyone else in the movie, she looked like De Niro compared to the other teenagers.
Man, yeah, like
it's a bad crop of.
I literally what I wondered was like it had an element of, are they just trying to again kind of almost slightly spoof the genre and like telling these kids, we want you to be the obnoxious dumb kids
because you're just here to die anyway.
Yeah, like so it reminded me a little bit in that way of a movie from last year, In a Violent Nature.
Yeah,
In a Violent Nature is like we've got the simple premise where people are going to be there just to see the killer make
have the most disposable characters.
And we're gonna, exactly. And I was like, I wonder if they were going for a little bit of that.
It could be.
It didn't land as as nicely as In a Violent Natures did, where it was like very clear what they were doing.
Right.
So I just wondered, like, I mean, the one guy that plays the awkward kind of redneck hunter guy was so wooden and like terrible in his acting. I was like, are they telling him to be this bad?
It could be. He's bad.
I almost hope that's the case because otherwise it is just
like, yeah, buddy,
horrible.
You're not good. No, but I will say, like, I also like to like. That kid, like they established the whole movie, this kid's like a redneck, and then he's just got his gun, and it's like it's so annoying in movies when like you're being chased by bad guys and they just have like a knife or a chainsaw. It's like, dude, you have a shotgun. He actually uses the shotgun pretty well in this movie. I did appreciate that.
Yeah.
So these are just, like I said, I'm not saying this is a great movie. These are just little things I was able to enjoy from this movie.
Yeah. So there's one other moment I feel like we have to talk about. That's sort of the big like turning point in the movie where they're at the party and the clowns, right before they reveal themselves, they like the girl stumbles out of the cornfield and drops dead, and they all assume because they do these pranks for videos,
right?
That's one of those. Then the head comes out and the girl's like, they're so insistent, so stubborn about the fact that this is fake. And when the one girl, I can't remember what happens to the head. Somehow the head,
she
like,
tosses it to her.
Yeah, and it spews the blood all over. And she goes, "You got corn syrup all over me," and you're just like, "Oh my god!"
I know. I was like, "Is this terrible or is this actually kind of funny?" I couldn't.
It sort of straddles both.
It kind of straddles the line, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and again, too, like just that visual of all of a sudden this head just comes flying out of this cornfield, where you're just kind of like, I think this is kind of funny in a way.
And then for a moment, I was like, ooh, because again, the movie's called Clown, singular, in a
all
cornfield.
Of a sudden,
you have no indication up to that point that there's going to be multiple, but then all of a sudden, like, all these clowns start coming out, and you're like, oh, stuff's really going crazy. One of the things but from there, what really bothers me is we don't know this at the moment, but they're really only after this like small group of the teenagers. There's this whole party going on in there, and you're like, there's all these clowns, all these teens. We're about to have mayhem,
and we don't get it.
And I just wish they would have. I wish they would have leaned into like,
I know, just a clown massacre.
Send 30 teens out into these cornfields with 10 killer clowns chasing them down, and you got 40 minutes of great content instead of 5 there.
Give me a scene where they chop someone's head off and put it on the scarecrow. Like you're right. It is the same like Cocaine Bear, Y2K type situation. Like if you're gonna do this, do it. Mm-hmm. Like go all out. But they didn't, and we got what we got. One thing I was thinking about a lot when I was watching this movie, it is unbelievable how all these years later influential Scream still is.
Yeah.
And a movie like this shows you how good the Scream movies are, I think.
And you said our lead girl is very Sidney Prescott, down to my mom is dead and my dad is...
yes. I mean, people are still following the Scream model, and Scream came out in 1996.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just did it so much better. Because, like I said, you hold it up against something like this, and Scream just completely obliterates it.
Where, Scream, we talked about this movie not really finding its tone or the right tone. Scream is tone perfect, beginning to
They
end.
nailed it.
And and it's so tone perfect that it has worked, 6 times
Six
now?
times,
And
maybe a seventh
coming.
next year. There's a 7th one coming.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a thought I had while watching this movie.
Yeah. One thing that will probably not surprise you is I don't have a best bit of trivia from this movie because
That is
there's
shocking.
not.
There's like 3
hardly
things
any
on
trivia,
IMDb, I think.
and they are none of
Nothing,
them
yeah.
interesting or fascinating. I will say I am shocked at the Rotten Tomatoes scores for this movie because the critics are giving it a 74%.
I know.
And I'm like, there's no chance.
Were the critics 12-year-old boys? Or?
I've never felt more like an old man reading a critic score because I'm thinking like critics back in my day sure as heck wouldn't have.
No, you're right.
liked
It's
this
weird.
movie.
People are very, almost like forgiving of this movie.
Yeah, audience is 64%, and I'm like, I've never seen a movie like this
Have a
where
higher
the
critic
critics
score.
are higher on it than the audience when it is just a
weird.
clear, dumb, meant to be a crowd pleaser, even
Yeah.
though it's got no artistic integrity to it.
Nothing at all.
Unbelievable. I couldn't find much about budget. It said all I could see was maybe roughly around $2 million.
Yeah,
which
it made
checks
3.
out.
It made 3 this weekend.
Okay,
So I mean, I honestly though I could see this movie kind of living on streaming a little bit.
yeah,
Like honestly, if I was scrolling through Netflix or something and I was kind of like moving around the house and cleaning, I would turn it on.
because it's got the great elevator pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're looking for like, hey, I just want to watch something like dumb horror movie.
Yeah, so I think
Clown
it
in the
might.
Cornfield sounds perfect.
I think it might live on a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we have to do it because we've been doing it all year. We got to figure out if there's a place for us to put our beloved Uncle Chip into this movie. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of places to put adults in this movie that aren't just being another murderous clown.
Right. I don't think that's what I want from Uncle Chip.
I don't want that from Uncle Chip. No. My only thought was, well, my first thought I wrote was keep him out of this terrible movie. He's too good for it. But I said, other than that, maybe for no explainable reason, he's at the party with a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah.
Like he's just in that barn partying with them.
That would be incredible.
And, maybe the new girl just says like, "Who's that guy?" And they're all like, "Oh, that's just Chip." And then
Chip.
they just leave it alone.
And then like it cuts to her and she's kind of like giving a confused look.
Yeah.
I will second that.
Yeah.
Can we just point out too, like how funny that it is? And this is all horror movies, even horror movies I like. So like if you're what did we decide his name was? Started with a C. The kid. Cole. Thank you. So Cole's dad tries to let him die a long, violent death and tells him how much he hates him, wishes he was never born, all this stuff. And then Cole is in the car when the girl runs into him and he basically explodes. And then he's just fine. Like at the end of the movie, him and his friend come to see the girl as she's, I think, going to college. They really don't even establish that.
Yeah.
And he's just fine. Like life's just going on. His dad tried to murder him and told him how much he hates him and how disappointed he is. I assume his mom died in there somewhere. Was she the one that had like the big pole sticking in her chest?
Honestly, I don't even
know. But everything's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's just going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my opinion. I was like, okay, everybody that was part of that experience immediately leaving that town.
Yeah.
There's not a chance.
No,
that
and the
they're all
dad's like, you know what? I think I'm going to stick around and run for mayor. And by the way, how many signs did he need in his own yard? Did you see that? He had like 11 signs in his yard for his campaign. That's great.
I brought my daughter to a town where a bunch of the town leaders dressed as killer clowns and tried to kill my daughter.
And
so I should stick around.
I think I'll just stick around and really plant my flag in this town. Yeah. I kind of sort of like the scene where they got him, which made no sense because they had no way of knowing he was going to show up. And they made him like try and help the one guy.
Yeah.
I thought that was all right.
Yeah.
One last thing. I did appreciate that this movie did not end with like at the very last second, a clown like pops up out of somewhere.
Yeah.
I will give it credit for that. It felt like they just told the story and then everyone is fine. Because that's the laziest thing that horror movies do.
Yeah. I did wonder, just slightly wonder if there was going to be like a mid-credits or post-credit type thing. And I
I looked. I
did-
Googled it, and there's not.
I Googled as I walked out because I was
Same.
like, I don't care enough to stick around and see.
but I just want to know if there is
But I
one.
just let me know if they tried it. Mainly for the sake of this, the podcast. It's like I already missed the beginning. It's okay if I miss the end.
It's fine.
Oh man. Okay. Well, Andy, I'm glad that thankfully you weren't so high on this movie that my negativity was going to offend you. But
No, I'm not offended at all. And like I said, it probably makes for just a terrible podcast from my end of things where it's like, no, this isn't good, but yes, I enjoyed it. And that sounds like such a contradiction, but listen, we try and be real and honest on here.
in the end, as much as we try to analyze, critically and make sense of things, art is subjective, and sometimes it is what it is.
It is what it is. I had nothing to do on a Friday night, and this passed an hour and a half nicely for me.
Hey, that
And
works.
like, there's also a difference between a movie being so bad that it like makes you angry. It's like Madam Web bad, where you just feel insulted, and then there's bad like this, where you just go, I don't care. They didn't hurt my feelings. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's different kinds of bad.
Yeah.
And this was not I need to vent and rant to Jeremy about this bad. This was like, hey, this wasn't good, but thanks. You gave me something to do for a little bit.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you need something to do that isn't that bad, that passes.
We're here to
an hour
help.
and a half.
If you want to go do something that's really not that fun and watch a movie that's really not that good, I would like to recommend Clown in a Cornfield for you. You're welcome. Happy Mother's Day. If you want to go spend $15 on something that's probably not worth $15, go see Clown in a Cornfield. Jeremy and I are just here to help.
This is the hardest I've ever laughed on the podcast.
I love
oh my
it.
gosh.
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you for that. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us.
And it's like, go see Clown in a Cornfield or don't. It really doesn't matter at all. Makes no difference to your life whether you go see this movie or not.
It really doesn't.
No.
We will be taking a break and
Let you wipe the
starting again to discuss another horror movie.
We will.
So please
See
join
you
us
soon.
for that discussion.